And these macrocytes can fold in half to form really a structure like a chelator. A chelator being a molecule that has jaws that can pick up, it looks like jaws, that's why it's called the Greek word chelate. And the thing is, so it's picking up all of these metal ions and coming in the other way. Now, it can go between the cobalt ion that will combine with the water-soluble Ural ion, which is the uranium. And so what's happening here is that this macromolecule is dissolved in water. And it leaves us one oxygen protruding ion. And so because this macrocycle molecule is destroyed by water, it can't be used to remove the uranium from the contaminated water.
Oh.
So what happens is that they believe that this is all out of the public domain, by the way, but it's finding that if you take the substance and transform this dissolved uranyl ion into an insoluble compound, you're achieving something that's never occurred in research at the bench. So what has to happen is to create a new pathway, just like Parker Pathway Show. That's one of the reasons I named it Pathway, for having the uranium removed from the body. So what you have, the only three ways that you can approach this is that you have to deal with the contamination water of our water supply on the Earth and create a new macrocycle molecule to loosen the bonds of the ions that are containing the plutonium. So what's going on here is not only the concept of the nanotube being involved in the antenna signal, it is also the purpose of changing the Ural ion of the uranium in the body itself.
I see.
That's the big secret.
That's the big secret. Now, let me explain to you the difference between ingesting uranium, for instance, in drinking water, and inhaling it in the form of depleted uranium particles. And then I want your comment. This is the most interesting interview I think I've ever done, because
we have about 12 minutes.
I'm learning so much, and I hope the audience is too, and you too.
This is the top of the line here. This kind of information is the top of the line.
Yes. Now, when uranium is dissolved in water, and there are many populations that have lived in areas where there are high levels of uranium in the drinking water, in the groundwater, and it doesn't seem to affect the population. The reason is when you drink it, or it's contaminating food, the particles are highly charged, and they attach themselves to the organic material passing through the gut. And so they're pretty much excreted very efficiently. The difference between depleted uranium particles that are formed at very, very high temperatures, hotter than the sun even, 3,000 to 5,000 degrees centigrade, is that they form very insoluble high-temperature oxides. And the depleted uranium, when it burns, actually forms a radioactive poison gas, and as it cools or quenches, it forms nanoparticles of these high-temperature depleted uranium oxides, which are round, hollow spheres or Christmas tree balls. And so the density of uranium metal is over 19, but the density of high-temperature depleted uranium or ceramic oxides is less than 1. The nanoparticles remain permanently suspended in the atmosphere, and they're kept suspended by Brownian motion or air molecules bumping into them and keeping them suspended. They become incorporated in atmospheric dust, and they circulate around the world within 2 or 3 weeks. Within 7 to 9 days, they're carried from the battlefields of Afghanistan and Iraq and Yugoslavia to Britain, and we have continuous air monitoring at the Aldermaston nuclear weapons facility in England, which proves the U.S. and Britain constantly grid-bombed and carpet-bombed Iraq from 1998, when the database begins, through 2003. Now, this is causing global pollution. All during atmospheric testing, all of the nuclear states only released the equivalent of 40,000 Hiroshima bombs into the atmosphere. But since 1991, what the U.S. and Britain have admitted to using, which is much less than what they've actually used, is the equivalent of 400,000 Nagasaki bombs. So they've released 10 times more. This is causing a global diabetes epidemic, which the World Health Organization projected will increase 10 times by the year 2030. Cancer is just the tip of the iceberg. Hypertension, Alzheimer's disease, Lou Gehrig's disease, all these neurological and neuromuscular diseases are the types of diseases that have the greatest increase. Cancer has the lowest increase. So it's only the tip of the iceberg. So what comment do you have about the different physiological effects of the soluble uranium, which occurs in nature, as compared to these artificially produced depleted uranium particles?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why I made the comment in the last hour. Now, Parker Pathways, that the going theme is the behavior of deteriorated uranium is identical to that of the natural uranium, and I don't agree with that, because
it's not. It's absolute.
The kidney pathology of the human is really measured by the amount of enzyme change that can occur as similar to dialysis. This is why I always maintain that if you have chloramine as a secondary disinfectant in the water, you're picking up the other particle on the nitrogen ion to the bromide, the haloacetic and idoacetic acid, which I mentioned earlier, and that attaches to the uranyl ion, which is creating this whole new gene signal. The gene signals are created by what are called the filtration kidney rate, which in order to determine the amount of deteriorated uranium in the urine from a human, you're using the ratio of uranium-235 to uranium-238. So what you're doing is actually measuring the amount of a protein enzyme change that is triggering the pancreas to cause diabetes type 1, and that has been totally hand-cold documented, and that hasn't reached the public either in terms of the disaster that we face.
It's been very hidden.
Yeah.
All through atmospheric testing. You find someone who will admit, who worked in the nuclear weapons program, that depleted uranium is even in atomic bombs. They all deny it. They never measured it.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the comments that I want to make is about the idea of passing through the intestine and the concept. I don't quite agree with that, because I have a whole series of enzyme and conceptual ideas of fecal measurements that have been made in Russia and Germany and in Iran, by the way, who is researching this extensively, and that's how you really get the real use of deteriorated uranium intake in the human body, is to measure it in the feces.